do there, chums? I doff my cap. It is I, Captain Steve, and today, chums, we're looking back at how No Man's Sky was made, but this is now to 2019 and even current era, because I'm going to be putting up some tweets from 2022. But first, let's just jump straight back to after launch and some of the things that Sean Murray realises that he's done incorrectly. Now, all the videos that I'm using will be in the video description.
There's a conflicted pride in how Murray talks about the launch version of the game. He made what he set out to, but he clearly understands that it wasn't what many were hoping for. He aimed to make a game that felt lonely, making you feel small against a practically infinite backdrop. But with an average team size of 6, he sees the version of the game that launched as lacking depth to justify travelling across its breadth. But there's a quirk that sets No Man's Sky apart from other games, which makes it quite so interesting to talk about even years down the line. People's fury at the launch version wasn't as much about hating what the game was, as hating what it wasn't. The team realised that much of what people were complaining about could be fixed or added, and so the updates began. 4 free editions have been a conscious attempt to hone the game into something like those dreamed up pre-release versions, to add depth to that breadth. Hello knows that it has a dormant install base beyond that of most games by a developer of its size. It's just a case of getting them to come back. Some games that achieved similar success around the same time have had 1, even 2 more sequels since release. People don't play them anymore. No Man's Sky has a different philosophy going forward.
So this is one of the things that really holds my interest with No Man's Sky, is their philosophy and the way that they're bringing out updates, and they're showing what they're doing through updates rather than words. It feels like I'm part of the journey, because you can give feedback in your videos and things and ideas and send them over to the Zendesk, which I encourage everybody in the viewerverse to do. There'll be links to the Zendesk inside the video description. Be sure to go and hit that up if you've got awesome ideas to share with Hello Games, because they're always listening to the community, which I freaking love about Hello Games.
Sean Murray is very keen for you to know that Next isn't a finale or a sequel, but a step. Hello Games might not want to talk about what it's making, but it absolutely is making new things. So is there any word on an overall vision, if not specific features? Going by Murray's comments, you can sum it up in a word: bigger. Murray now seems to see his original, lonely vision for the game as a piece of a wider idea. You can still play that way, but Hello aims to add much more to the template, and add it more frequently. He knows some see a game constantly in flux as a negative, but he seems to prefer to think of it more like evolution, adapting and improving.
So you're probably thinking, well, where is Sean Murray? Where is Sean Murray saying all of this sort of stuff? Well, that's an IGN video, and they obviously had an interview with him, but for whatever reason, he's not there, so it's just them voicing what he said. However, he has echoed the same sentiments to other places. So I'm going to be putting up some video clips from GDC 2019, where he talked about all this stuff on stage, in front of loads of game devs, mainly indie. But here we go, here's a clip from there, just to echo the sentiment.
The game has grown enormously, or broadened maybe enormously over the years. At some point, I assume you're gonna put down your pens and walk away, as it were. When you've made a universe and then built on that universe, how do you ever know when it's finished?
Yeah, I don't know. It's a good question. There's other things we want to do, and so that's a battle that happens, that I have to fight between No Man's Sky and other things that we're doing. So there's a balance there, It's more of a creative thing, I think, rather than a commercial thing. So, even though No Man's Sky has been very, commercially nice to us, and Next, that we released last year, we didn't know how well it would do, but it did incredibly well. It was kind of like a AAA type launch. So that's really nice, but we're generally driven by what we want to do creatively. So we're doing Beyond at the moment, and that, this is probably an insight into, it's a roundabout way of answering you. We had planned out what everyone has told us to do every few months, do a small update, right? That's how you kind of keep your concurrency and keep people playing, and that's what every games as a service game tends to do. We hadn't really done it before, and after Next we were like, no, this time we're going to do it. And every time we tried to do it before, we'd end up making our updates bigger and bigger, and in the end they'd slip out and we'd ship them later and they would be huge, We're like, right, we need to just make sure we don't do that again. And we're all looking at it, okay, we know the plan. And then we did 2 or 3 smaller updates, one every kind of month, and we were doing weekly community events, and it was going really well, and our numbers were high, and the community's happy, all of those things. And then there's part of the team who's working on the one that's supposed to come out, like you divide the team up, and there's some people working on the one that comes out after month 1, we've been working on the one that comes out after month 2, and there's these guys who, had until month 4, and another few people who had until month 5. And you're like, okay, we've shipped the first few, let's just check how everyone's doing. And they've gone absolutely nuts, And you're like looking at it, you're like, how are we going to ship this next month? And worse than that, they're like, we've all been talking, and we've like interwoven all these features, And look at how cool it could be. Sean, if we've had this with this, And so like, one group's like, we've made it work in VR, and that's no small thing, And then there's another group who've like massively expanded what we're doing with online, and then they're showing me those 2 things working together. It's just really, it's creatively driven. We just sat there and we're like, I guess we're doing another big update, And that's how it's been so far. That is genuinely, those are the conversations that happen. It's way less planned than like I should pretend we've had this plan all along. We're working on a roadmap, but it's literally month to month going, oh shit, I guess we're doing this now, The moment that would stop is if any of the team weren't looking at me excitedly, chatting about what they're doing. We have no interest in just doing like, oh, and here's another, gauntlet or helmet or, whatever for this week. We just don't really have much interest in that. And it doesn't inspire us creatively.
So this really feeds into what's been happening in 2022 with Sean Murray's tweets. He actually puts out there that they're hoping to put large, weird updates out, but not only just an update, but also an expedition to go with the actual update to give us something to play and something more to enjoy with the width and breadth of the game and how it's developing. So I really like the fact that what he's echoing in 2019 is now actually happening and taking place in 2022. Anyways, back to the IGN video. Heck yeah.
Adapting and improving. That won't stop for the foreseeable future, and from the little I can glean, multiplayer seems to be where the team's focused for now. It feels appropriate. The early game was designed to be lonely, and I imagine Murray was lonely himself, weathering the brunt of the Twitter storm in those first months. Multiplayer finally adds light and laughter to his quiet galaxy. It's probably no surprise that he wants to stay in that headspace for a time. But for all this artistic vision, there's always the looming question of money. No Man's Sky has been a one-time purchase for 2 years, a true rarity in the current industry, and while each update presumably brings with it a fresh wave of buyers, there must surely be diminishing returns. How sustainable is this model? The answer, at least for now, seems to be something along the lines of, who cares?
So they're still relatively an indie-sized team, but what they're putting out there into the verse is freaking epic. I mean, such an ambitious title, such an ambitious project. Hello Games, salute Mondo. You really did take the bull by its horns with this title, and fair play to you. It's paid off. A lot of hard work, but yes, you can see the fruition, can't you really? It's been freaking great. Anyhow, they get asked in GDC 2019, do they have any plans to grow the team? And here's what Sean Murray had to say.
Is the future of Hello Games still small comparatively? Do you have ambitions to grow? Do you want to be 100 people making 3-4 things at once, or do you like it as you are now?
You've touched one of my buttons there. The industry is obsessed with number of people working in a studio. Anytime I meet other studio heads, they're always like, oh, how many people are you now? and they start telling me how many people they are, as if that's how successful you are. I just have no interest in that, you know. It just doesn't. It's not that we want to stay a certain size or we don't or whatever. It's just like how many amazingly talented people can you find that all get on well together and have fun together and they're creatively inspired. That's the size you should be, and you know, there's no part of me that's interested in aiming for a certain size as like success. But you know, and in a weird way, we're always trying to grow. We're always like, we find someone we really get on with, we really want to work with them, and we're in a really nice position where we have a nice new office and we're very kind of well-funded studio and things like that. We're in a unique position as being like a AAA type studio, you know, making games that sit on retail shelves and sell big numbers and things like that, but being small. There's very few studios that get to do that.
Along the lines of, who cares? Honestly, it feels like the simplicity of releasing new updates for free is what Sean Murray needs. Next represents No Man's Sky at its highest ebb since just before release. The community's thriving, the reaction has been positive, the future is bright. After the unimaginable gamut of development, top-tier promotion and fire and brimstone reaction, the relative quiet of intermittent updates, whether or not they make cold business sense, feels like a perfectly reasonable choice. Murray is the same man he always was, but he has a new outlook, and it's working for him, and for Hello as a whole. No Man's Sky isn't an engine of potential anymore, not subject to the dreams of its creator nor its fans. It's just a game. You like it or you don't. Murray's happy not having to talk about it in the future tense, happy that all he has to do is show people what he and his team have made, see their reaction and make some more. He's happy not doing interviews. I don't expect to talk to Sean Murray again for some time, and that's okay.
So it sounds to me like Sean Murray has now got a new sort of mindset. Let's show our games off after we've made them, rather than on the build. Yeah, so they've learned a lot, and that's probably why they communicate with the community in the way that they do, through patch notes and updates and through doing. But they have done that talk at GDC 19 where they touch on future aspirations for Hello Games and their ambitious project that's on the horizon. They don't give too much away though, heck no.
Yeah, we just, you know, we've been dreaming of other stuff that we want to do, you know. We're doing some of that, like some of the big updates that we're doing, VR for instance, is something I've always wanted to do, you know, and it's really exciting to me. It's really lovely to see a team just kind of get to grips with new hardware that they've never used before and do something kind of exciting. You know, so there's part of that. We're doing this smaller game, The Last Campfire, things like that. We've got something else going on at the studio. It's exciting. Yeah, and it is unfortunately just going to be ambitious stuff, you know. Like, basically, we had a little chat actually after No Man's Sky, and I've decided that making games is really hard. Like, it just is, no matter what game you pick.
Has this just recently occurred to you?
Yeah. No matter what you pick, you talk to any developer, you meet other developers, and they start off and you meet them right at the start, and they come to you and they say, oh, we're breaking away, and we're making this little physics puzzler or something like that, or it's a Tetris clone or something like that. And then you meet them like 3 years later, and they've got a massive beard, and they're like, it's got, you know, 300-player multiplayer or whatever, you know, and they've just found a way to, you know, fuck themselves basically, and that just happens. Like, we all do it, you know, and so weirdly, my conclusion from that is let's make something really crazy and ambitious, you know, because it's going to be hard anyway. Like, Joe Danger was really hard, No Man's Sky was really hard, and they're actually kind of comparable levels of hardness. But No Man's Sky had a real impact, you know, had like hundreds of millions of hours played. So let's do that. Let's do crazy, silly things like that. And as well, it just hadn't been done before, so that's interesting. And sort of, we're okay commercially, so let's go nuts, you know. is my summary, and you will meet me 3 years from now, and my beard will be down to here.
Nothing wrong with that.
Why didn't somebody stop that?
Excellent.
So a couple of years back we had Origins drop into the verse, which brought in a lot more variety, gave us 2 new biomes, a few new creature types, including burrowing ones, giant flying beetles, and all sorts of other sorts of gnarly stuff, which is freaking awesome. But they actually sat down and done another interview with IGN, and IGN asked questions like, do you feel that this has now made it the game that it should be? And Sean Murray sort of said yes, and they also asked him about future plans, and this is what he had to say about No Man's Sky.
Yeah, this is our kind of big yearly update, like we did Next and Beyond. This is a big one that a bunch of the team's been working on for a while. But yeah, we still have more things coming this year. We're all locked in our houses now, so what else can we do? Just make games.
So again, this ties into that tweet in 2022 where we are now that suggests that they're going to be putting in weirder and weirder things into the verse, and I honestly can't wait. Super stoked! Well, thank you very much for watching. If you like what you see, please hit a like and a subscribe, and I'd like to say a massive great big thank you to all of my backers over on Patreon and over on YouTube membership. Thanking you, backers! And if you want to support this channel, just don't skip the adverts. That throws revenue down my avenue. Or yeah, just stay with Captain Steve that little bit longer and hit something on this screen. There's merch here now too.